We are going to be discussing the relationship amongst transformational leadership, employee engagement, job satisfaction, and employee turnover. Leadership influences a number of things. It can influence anything in an organization, anything in anyone's life, really. Leadership doesn't necessarily have to be in the workplace. It can be outside of the workplace. It can be in extracurricular activities, in a household. It can be anywhere. But the specific things that we are going to be focusing on today is how leadership influences employee job satisfaction, employee engagement, employee turnover, and organizational success. So we are going to be focusing on how leadership plays a role in the workplace. So for many years, it's been debated on what motivates and satisfies employees and what influences employee retention. Several people argue that money plays a huge factor in monetary things. Others argue that it's environment. Several people have argued that it's leadership. Today we are going to look at some of that, and we're kind of going to focus on how leadership plays a role in employee job satisfaction and retention and engagement. There are several different leadership styles. There's authoritative, which is a leadership style where the leader dictates policies and procedures. The leader decides what goals are going to be achieved and kind of directs and controls the followers without a whole lot of participation from the followers. It's more of, I'm going to tell you how to do this, and this is what you're going to do. Then there's laissez-faire. This type of leadership is very different from the authoritative leadership. This leadership gives the team members a lot of freedom on how to do their work. They set their own deadlines and kind of just work on their own, but the leader is there to provide support and resources and advice if needed. Otherwise, they don't really get involved. There's transactional leadership. This is a leadership style where really the followers have to obey the leader. The leader basically kind of sets the rules, and if the leaders don't meet expectations or don't perform appropriately, they can actually get punished. There's also democratic leaders. These leaders kind of give a say to the followers, but ultimately they make the decision. There's also transformational leadership, which we are going to discuss more in depth later in the presentation. So one of the main things that we are going to focus on is how transformational leadership impacts employee engagement, employee turnover, and job satisfaction. So we discussed all those other types of leadership styles, and now we're going to focus on transformational leadership. This can be defined as a process by which leaders motivate their employees to outperform an initially expected level to transcend followers, individual interests, and in order to accomplish a collective goal. So we are going to look into how transformational leadership affects employee engagement. So what exactly is employee engagement? Well, it can be defined as a workplace approach that results in the right conditions for all members of an organization to give their best each day. This is where employees are committed to their organization's goals and values. They're motivated to contribute to organizational success with an enhanced sense of their own well-being. We also want to look into how transformational leadership affects job satisfaction. And job satisfaction can be defined as the degree to which individuals feel positively or negatively about their jobs. We also want to look at how transformational leadership affects employee turnover. And employee turnover is the number or percentage of workers who leave an organization and are replaced by new employees. It can be said that an engaged workforce is less likely to quit their jobs, and that managers or leaders affect the extent of such engagement. So we are going to investigate that a little bit more. It can also be said that enhancing the sense of belonging and organizational identification can result in higher motivation, job satisfaction, and reduced turnover intentions. Once again, we are going to continue to research that a little bit further. There are many arguments about what transformational leaders do or do not do. Obviously, we looked at several other types of leadership styles, and it can be researched that those have other benefits, that they might be better than transformational leadership. But today, since we're focusing on transformational leaders, we want to focus on the fact that transformational leaders can create visions, they can motivate their followers, they can inspire commitment, and they can enhance performance. And those other types of leadership styles that were earlier discussed don't necessarily do all of those things. So now we are going to just look at a few arguments about transformational leadership. Argument number 1 states that transformational leadership behaviors include individualized consideration and inspirational motivation. Individual consideration reflects the notion that each employee has specific strengths and interests. I take that to mean that transformational leaders can alter their style. Not all employees perform the same under the same conditions. Some employees work better alone, some work better in teams, some work better in a noisy environment, in a chaotic environment. Other people like to work alone in a quiet area. Working conditions can completely vary, and certain people perform better in certain conditions. They all have different wants and needs and preferences, and I take this to mean that transformational leaders can alter their style to each individual. So they might, have one leadership style or behavior with one employee, and then when they go to the next employee, they might change to help motivate that employee in a different kind of way. Argument 2 states that transformational leadership helps sustain employee work engagement on days characterized by high challenge job demands and protects work engagement on days characterized by high hindrance job demands. This kind of goes along with the last one. I take it to mean that transformational leaders can once again alter their behavior based on the conditions. Argument number 3 states that transformational leadership behavior of team leaders correlates in a positive direction with team performance. In addition, transformational leadership has a mediating relationship between the environments in which teams are performing and the overall team achievements. I just take this to mean that transformational leaders, there's a positive effect when they're around, that they boost performance, they boost environment, they boost employee satisfaction in general. Argument 4 states that when leaders demonstrate transformational leadership behaviors, they facilitate possible changes in employee attitudes, such as empowerment and commitment towards the organization. Once again, this is the same as the last quote, basically stating that employees are happier when transformational leadership is being presented, when the leadership is exhibiting these behaviors. They want to perform better, they feel more positive, they feel more challenged, they are just overall more happy. Argument 5 states that Followers of transformational leaders are likely to exhibit higher levels of trust, satisfaction, motivation, commitment, and engagement, and they perform beyond organizational expectations. These go to, relates to the last two arguments, stating that basically transformational leadership has a positive effect on both the employees and the organization as a whole. You know, employee job satisfaction and motivation that affects the organization, because when people are motivated and committed, they perform better. Performing better gets better results. It influences customers and all sorts of things. So basically, transformational leadership it has a positive effect on employees and the organization as a whole. So for this research project, we are going to make a few assumptions. We are going to assume that the employees that have been studied or that are being studied are working in a field that interests them. And we are also going to assume that they are not job hoppers, which basically is somebody that works briefly in one position after another, and then they don't stay in one particular role long term. So we do have a few limitations when it comes to this research. We are limited to the access data gathered. Some people may not be willing to participate. There are also limits to how much data can be gathered. Obviously, we cannot collect data from every person everywhere. Employee attitudes and personality, we're kind of limited on that because some people are just negative, no matter the working conditions. They could have perfect working conditions and still not be happy, because some people just don't want to work. So we don't have any way to control that. We also cannot control another thing that kind of relates to personality. Not all employees respond to each leadership style the same way, and every employee has different wants and needs. That's something we cannot control. So the delimitations are that we are going to survey employees at 5 healthcare facilities. We are going to survey healthcare employees that are not required to work weekends or holidays. We're going to survey employees that have the option to receive employee benefits, paid holidays, paid vacation, health insurance, and dental insurance. And we're going to control the sample location. We are going to use surveys to conduct this research. So surveys with 15 questions are going to be distributed to 50 healthcare professionals, once again at 5 different facilities, and they're going to focus on what impact the organizational leaders have on how they feel about their jobs, their commitment to their work and organization, and their likelihood to leave the organization in the future. Transformational leadership is going to be the independent variable, and employee engagement, job satisfaction, and employee turnover are the dependent variables in this study. The research design for this involves a control group. It's the time series design. The employees are going to be measured on job satisfaction, engagement, and motives to quit. There will be 2 groups. They're going to be divided among 5 healthcare facilities, and they will be measured over a 90-day period. The measurement's going to be taken every 45 days. So it's going to be taken in the beginning, and then after 45 days, and then again after the 90-day period. Group A is going to receive the experimental treatment, and Group B is not going to receive any treatment at all. So it's going to be the control group. The treatment is the implementation of managers and leaders of the organization demonstrating transformational leadership behaviors. So here is a figure of the treatment. As you can see, Group A will receive the treatment after 45 days, and Group B is not going to receive any treatment at all. As previously discussed, the participants are going to consist of 50 healthcare professionals from 5 healthcare facilities. There's going to be 10 professionals at each facility, and these will all be facilities in Central Illinois. So for the study, a survey of 15 questions will be distributed to these healthcare professionals, and the 15 questions are going to be divided into 3 specific categories. Questions 1 through 8 will relate to leadership. Questions 9 through 13 will relate to job satisfaction. Questions 14 and 15 are going to relate to employee turnover and the participants' motives to quit. All of this information is going to be thoroughly read, studied, and organized, and all of the data will be reported. And this is going to be completed over a 90-day period. Here is a quick snapshot of the survey. Question number 1 states, how often do you feel appreciated by your manager? Number 2, how frequently do you receive recognition from your manager? Number 3, do you believe the leadership team takes your feedback seriously? Number 4, how likely are you to put more effort into your work if you received more appreciation or recognition from your manager? Number 5, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable do you feel giving feedback to your manager? Number 6, do you feel valued at work? Number 7, do you feel your managers foster a positive work environment? Number 8, what qualities do you value most in a leadership or manager? Number 9, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you at work? Number 10, would you refer someone to work here? Number 11, do you believe you'll be able to reach your full potential here? Number 12, how often do you feel enjoyment from your job? Number 13, if you were given the chance, would you reapply for your current job? Number 14, hypothetically, if you were to quit tomorrow, what would your reason be? Number 15, do you see yourself working here a year from now? Hopefully these questions will get us the answers and back up our arguments. Our argument being that basically transformational leaders do have a great positive influence on retention, job satisfaction, and turnover.